But at the same time, he definitely gave clear instructions that students or the student pathway is not a permanent pathway, right? So
I don't think so. The students should be blamed for it. I mean, they were shown a dream. They didn't come here without permission. Like the jobs that these guys do, international students and temporary foreign workers do, are the jobs that Canadians don't want to do.
Yeah.
Another thing that we have to accept is that there are 2.7 million international temporary residents in Canada, and not everybody is going to get their PR.
Senior director of IRCC, when we asked him about the domestic draws, he did very candidly mention that this was in reference to CEC, Canadian Experience Class draws. Hello and welcome. My name is Kubeir. I'm a CICC licensed immigration consultant. And by the way, this is Sahil, also CICC licensed immigration consultant. And this is Shafoli, also a CICC licensed immigration consultant. We are here at the NCIC, National Citizenship and Immigration Conference, and had fantabulous 2 days. But I got both these guys here to have a brief discussion in understanding what's exactly going on with Canadian immigration. First with Sahil. Sahil, what are you thinking? What's happening? The PNPs are becoming difficult. The international student, practically you just can't get admission. I mean, you can get admission, you probably will not get your study permit. And then all these talks about the postgraduate work permit extensions. Prince Edward Island protest, what happened in Manitoba, BC is planning, BC is already having, Ontario is planning one. What do you think is going on?
I think yes, Kubeir, definitely things are on a lower end at the moment with regards to Canadian immigration. PNPs, as we all know, Prince Edward Island, Nova Scotia, New Brunswick, we had, Alberta earlier this year, BC. PNPs right now, without job offer, appears to be a far-fetched challenge. Even with job offers, as you're seeing, the programs are already on pause, closing down and whatnot. So overall, the PR pathways appear to be a bit shaken for international students, especially when we know a lot of international students will have their expiring PGWPs in the year 2024. So I think the prime priority at this moment should be to look at how to retain international students, especially PGWP holders, how to not let them leave the country. Even though the minister has said that it's extremely important for the economy to retain these workers, but at the same time he definitely gave clear instructions that students or the student pathway is not a permanent pathway, right? So conflicting views, but yes, I think this year's primary objective will be to see how to retain these PGWP holders and how to come back with additional PR pathways for domestic workers, right? How to
fair point.
How to give these guys a fair shot at PR. Still we are looking at 500,000 people every year. Thankfully, it's not gone down. But we'll have to wait and watch.
Okay, that I'm sure most of you already know most about it, but I'm going to put Shafoli on the spot here. And Shafoli, first of all, you've heard about the protests, postgraduate work permit holders who are protesting to get extensions on their postgraduate work permit. It was happening in British Columbia because of the changes that are going to happen in 2025. Then it was happening in Manitoba, and now more recently in Prince Edward Islands, where they have even threatened to go on a hunger strike if their demands are not met. What do you think about this?
That's actually a very interesting question. And you know what? I don't think so. The students should be blamed for it. I mean, they were shown a dream. They didn't come here without permission. Like they were allowed to come into Canada. They were given study permits. They were approved study permits. They paid all the fees. So we can't blame these international students, but we also understand that some decisions that the government took over the last couple of years, they all went wrong. They've completely gone out of whack. And as a result, the international students and temporary foreign workers in this country are bearing the brunt of it. Yes, Canadian citizens and permanent residents are also not really happy about it because they think that they're losing their jobs to these Canadian, these international students and PGWP holders. But in my opinion, and I say this very loud and clear everywhere, that the jobs that these guys do, international students and temporary foreign workers do, are the jobs that Canadians don't want to do. Whether they agree with it or don't, and we can have this as a debatable topic, but they don't do those jobs, and these are the kids who are doing those jobs. Tim Hortons. How many times we've seen, okay, let's not talk about rural communities, but big cities. How many international Canadian citizen children want to work in those jobs? They don't. But it is these international students who come here the day they arrive here and they start working, and they work there even after they get their PR, because sometimes they find it harder to integrate into the Canadian society. They can't get jobs. They ask for Canadian experience. Also, the kind of education that they get from here, those degrees and diplomas don't really land them into any, great jobs. So as a result, until they've actually integrated into the society, they continue working in those jobs. So I don't think that these kids should be blamed, because they came here with a Canadian dream, and that dream doesn't look like something that's going to be fulfilled in the near future.
Okay, so let me probe this a bit further. And I know some of you are already thinking, let me quickly comment and say, hey, well, these international students wrote in their statement of purpose that they will go back. Why aren't they going back? And the fact that they are temporary residents, once their temporary residence period is done, they should go back. Or that they have completed their studies, they should go back. I know about that, but let me probe this a bit further. There was in her defense, and of course in mine and his as well, and yes, we are immigration consultants, yes, this is our business, yes, we do this for a living, but at the same point of time, collectively, we are here in Canada, and we form the part of the people who live here, and collectively, we want to see this grow in a positive manner. The reason why international students, to sort of further comment on that, is they feel cheated, and you would say, where is this coming from, is why don't you go back and look at that mandate letter that Prime Minister Trudeau has issued to Sean Fraser, where it says to create more pathways in the express entry for international students and foreign workers. Why would you create a mandate like that? Number one. Number two, how many times have you not heard an immigration minister time after time saying that these international students are very valuable assets, that they are very valuable? Now, the term which was used again and again was very valuable, and at the same point of time, a very contradictory one that said cheap labor as well. Both the times, it was indicated that this community serves a very, very important purpose within this market, labor market. So from what you're talking about, if these international students should protest, is that the right way to go about it, or should there be a more collective approach towards it?
Not necessarily. So probably protesting is not the way, because we've seen it time and again that protests maybe doesn't necessarily get you what you really want. Instead, and that's how I believe in things, we got to work on ourselves. We need to understand how things can work. Another thing that we have to accept is that there are 2.7 million international temporary foreign workers, or temporary residents, as we say, not temporary foreign workers, temporary residents in Canada, and not everybody is going to get their PR. So if you think that by working in just a regular knock, be a tier 2, 3, or 1 job, you're going to get your PR, it's not happening. You got to strategize it. You have to use your time resourcefully and judiciously, because time is limited, whether you're an international student, whether you're on a PGWP, whether you're on a LMI-based work permit. Time is limited for you. So you need to plan strategically. That's what I feel. Work in high demand occupations, enhance yourself, work in industries where you think that there are labor market shortages. Again, the research has to come from you, or maybe connecting with representatives or immigration practitioners such as ourselves who know what's really going on. Okay, we're not saying we know it all, but we can at least guide you in the right direction and plan your next couple years strategically. I'm not specifically talking about people whose work permits are expiring this year, because it's hard to win that battle at this point unless you have an LMIA, or you're getting married to somebody, or you have another way of doing it. It's a hard battle to win if you're nowhere close to those scores, or you don't have a PNP coming up. But the ones who still have time, don't waste that time. You're sitting on a ticking time bomb. You gotta plan strategically of how you want to use your next couple of years if you're serious about that Canadian dream. Otherwise,
it's going to be difficult. Yeah, I agree with that. So, just to take it a bit more further, the research and the planning should start from the get-go. The day you decide that you want to come to Canada as an international student, first identify the correct stream, correct program. Is just doing a 1-year diploma enough? Is that what you want to do? Why don't you opt for a master's degree in a field which will then further get you into a job, which will further then land you into a position which you can then establish for a permanent residence pathway? I know what you guys are thinking. What is the solution? There is no solution for everybody here. It will be individual, it will be specific, unique to your circumstances, your background. But I know this one Sahil would love, and I'm going to probe him on this one. You and I, we both met the senior director of IRCC. And very candidly, he did mention about, when we asked him about the domestic draws, he did very candidly mention that this was in reference to CEC, Canadian Experience Class draws. What are your views on that?
I think the way he had put it forward was that they're still exploring CEC draws, or there is a direct reference between what the minister had to say of domestic and what they're exploring CEC draws. But it's just that because he could not accept it publicly, that's a more
he cannot say it out loud,
that's an opinion that I have, and probably you also share. Going back to the same thing that Shafoli had put forward, I think it's, so who's to blame for the situation where the students are? I think the messaging from Canadian immigration should have been loud and clear on day one, because right now if you see the kind of changes that are expected in PGWP, like the bill that is being discussed, now they're coming out with saying people who are doing, say for example, although they haven't identified, but people in skills or people in hospital, like health related courses. Now if this was what they wanted, that people or students should come to Canada, study, and this would potentially lead to a PR. Why didn't they say that earlier? Like, why didn't they lay out the labor market priorities earlier, so that the students coming here planning for their permanent pathways could have been better prepared? Or instead of bringing in grade 12 graduates, they should have clearly pointed out that the scores are going to go higher, be prepared with French, or come after you have done your degree in India or anywhere else, so that you are able to reach that score. So I think because of the competitiveness of the pool, domestic workers, CEC draws will be leading the way, provided they're able to do CEC draws, right?
Sure.
If they don't hold CEC draws, then everybody's going to be looking at a white wall.
Sahil, I personally feel that with the government, the way how things have been in the last couple of years, and the number of ministers, the immigration ministers we've seen that have been changed, I don't think they really knew what they were doing. They just went with the flow.
More of a band-aid solution every time, yes.
During COVID, they needed people because Canadians were not ready to work, so they brought people from outside Canada.
Public policy.
Yes. Right?
Making them work 40 hours or more.
Correct. And at that time, they needed people to work. And now, because there are just so many people in Canada with a Canadian dream, remember, they all came to Canada with a dream that they are eventually going to be living here for the rest of their lives, because this is how Canadian immigration has always
portrayed
been.
here.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You come here as a student, you get your postgraduate work permit, there's a Canadian Experience Class draw. Every time, since 2015, this is how it has been. Your spouses can come with you, your children can come with you. And now suddenly they realized
they don't want them here.
The shift in vocabulary is very evident. Have you seen the immigration minister used to, as you were pointing out earlier? Earlier, the videos were, or Sean Fraser or ministers before him, they used to say, oh, they are our assets, we need them. And right now, it's suddenly Mark Miller saying, student pathway is not a pathway to PR. Come on, like, you've made use of them. You've had them working here for more than what they, were here to study for. And now when they are deserving their PR, you're saying
now we don't need them,
yes,
which is so unfortunate.
Which is not right.
So, being a Canadian myself, I'm totally, so, we're like split now. At this point, we are Canadian citizens who can exactly see what's going on. The country is going, if I can use that word on screen, on record, we're going to the dogs, literally. But
in so many different ways.
Right? But at the same, so as a Canadian citizen, I say that. I've been living here for quite a number of years, and it's been the worst that we've seen with the housing crisis, the inflation, how expensive things are. But then at the same time, I also feel, as an immigration consultant, I also feel for these international students, because it's not that they all come from wealthy families. Their parents have worked hard to fulfill the dreams of their children, and today they're at a point where they might have to go back.
Yeah.
Right?
After having spent so much
of money in this country. So I feel for them as an immigration consultant. And I know people would come up and say, oh, because you're going to lose money. No. They're not reducing the number of PRs.
Exactly, yeah.
We're not losing any money here. We are still going to get clients.
That narrative that who's going to pay, well, that money will come.
It's not about, it's just humanity here, right? What's going to happen? So many are going to go back and probably will not know what to do. It's just gotten out of control for everybody.
Okay, well, some very interesting perspectives here. I can understand that sometimes it can become very, very depressing. You might really have those thoughts. life is so much more valuable and so much more important to all of you out there. Don't ever think that this is the end of the world. This is not. There, as they say, or jahan or bahut bhi hai. You never know. You might find better paradise out there. You might find better dreams to fulfill and look after. So this is not the end of the world. But summing this whole thing up, and obviously Sahil had some good points, and so did Shafoli. But summing all this up, yes, the situation is difficult. Yes, it's looking very, very difficult. And again, it's not the end of the world. But for some of you out there, probably going back to your home countries might be a solution. Why? Because once you go back, you can gain 6 months to 1 year of work experience, identify a priority occupation that you guys might be able to get that work experience in. Hey, with 1 year of experience, you can get some very serious points, 50 some odd points, right? For skills transferability for your foreign work experience. And if you can get that in priority occupation, you might just get yourself in through the door with the priority occupation draws, category-based draws. Now, there is some talk on the horizon that there might be region-specific draws, but since we don't know much about it, we can only talk about it once we get information there. Thank you so much, Sahil.
No worries.
Appreciate
Nice to
it.
meet you.
Thank you, Shafoli. Guys, you know Sahil, you know Shafoli. Subscribe to the channel because that's where all the information is coming from. Thank you so much for joining in. I'll see you again.